If you don't have a raised fist, you must have a weak spine. So it's Jerry Ashton here again with another Occupy-focused interview here on WGRNradio.com's program, 15 Minutes of Fact, and enjoying the fact that the predicted 15 minutes of fame, which the Occupy movement was to have been lasting as long as, has been somewhat extended. In fact, it's been going on for some 9 months now. Now, there are many, many reasons for its longevity, the core being its beliefs as stated in the original Declaration of Occupation, produced by the General Assembly. There are 23 bullet points outlined in that, and I suggest that anyone who wants a good education or a reminder as to why Occupy exists to go to nycga.net, look under Resources, and be reminded of their clarity and power. Now, there's a very important secondary reason for Occupy still being a presence in a country which is obsessed with American Idol and other such important mainstream distractions. We have one of these photographers/reporters with us today, Jeff Pliskin of Raised Fist Propaganda. That's raisedfistpropaganda.com, by the way. I became aware of Jeff through a mutual friend and occupier, American poet Paul Spitz, who had been the subject of some of Jeff's works and felt that we should be in touch. And so we are. Welcome to the show today, Jeff.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I visited your website, and I came away impressed. Now, why don't you tell us how that site came about, as well as why you chose a particularly provocative title for it, such as Raised Fist?
That's a good question. Well, basically, I'm a photographer. It's something I've been doing for quite some time, over a decade, since high school. It's probably my passion. And when I go out there, I don't really go just to take photos so I can submit it. I pretty much just do it because it's more than just a hobby. You know, it's my passion. And I like to document groups of people. And I guess when I first started doing it in high school, there was a local skate shop in town, and that's when I first got my camera. I'd film and take photos of the skateboarders, and even when they closed up shop at night, they would have breakdancing going on. And in the shop, you could see through the clear glass window, so I would just film from outside in the beginning for like the first couple months of these like secluded breakdancers doing their thing. And then one day, they just opened up their doors after hours, let me in, and I shot some pieces of them, you know, spitting on the head and whatnot.
Wow. Just to be able to be ready for a moment in time which probably will never come again like that, and to take pictures. I hope you're amassing a pretty decent library.
You know, my library consists of all types of genres from, like I said, breakdance and skateboarding to hip-hop superstars, folk legends, and, of course, the Occupy movement.
Well,
I feel very, you know.
Well, where did the raised fist concept come from for you?
Well, here's the deal. When I was in high school, I wasn't really part of the popular kids. I went to like a white middle class high school, and I guess the cool kids were like either the singers of the drama club or the jocks that played football. And I was an awkward kid, you know. I really didn't have a lot of friends, and I guess the only types of people that would talk to me or be my friends were like the skateboarders in the mid-'90s. And what we would do for fun is we would just skateboard to the local diner, attempt to do some tricks in the park, and sometimes we would go to punk rock or hardcore shows. And, you know, it was just pretty much all the outcasts of Long Island, in my point of view, at the time, in the mid-'90s. So, obviously, you look at something like that, everyone's rebelling, you know. They're singing about, like, rebellious things, rising up, not having your feelings brought down. And it only came natural that I'm like, you know what, that would be pretty cool, something that describes what I do, kind of like raised fist. Not necessarily like violent or Black Panther style, more about like, listen, like positive, like raised fist, we're rising up, we're doing the right thing. It's been like 15 years.
Wow, that's got some credentials going along with it. Now, I would imagine that being off of mainstream center, your photography is not getting the wide distribution it deserves. I mean, when you start out videoing skateboarders, and then you move on to filming with a reggae band, Slightly Stoopid, on that Snoop Dogg tour, And then you start focusing on the backstage lives of bands like Bad Brains, Tang Clan, and so forth. That's some great photography, but it's not necessarily found on in USA Today, is it?
It isn't, but I think life is interesting, and I consider myself just an artist, and I feel like I said before, there are photographers who go out and like, today I'm going to shoot photos. With me, I consider it like a lifestyle where I actually make friends with the people before I even shoot one photo. So like the Wu-Tang, that was like one of the members called me up, like, you want to meet me and hang out and we'll talk about what we're going to do. So we just hung out and I took photos that night and whatever. Same thing with Slightly Stoopid. Like I was in California chilling on the beach. Next thing you know, I'm on tour hanging out with Snoop and all those dudes from Stupid. So, and, I think that's how I met the Occupy dudes, where I ran into them actually at a reggae show at Toots and the Maytals, which is a very positive band, singing about just keeping it positive and loving life. And I met Jay and films with him and Michael Moore. So,
well, let's talk about that part. Here you are now focusing your lenses on the Occupy movement and its people, and you started out with a mutual friend of ours, Jay, who's put together the album called Occupy This Album, which is a collection of 99 tracks by artists who contributed their time and their art to the Occupy movement. Were you there during that time?
I wasn't there during when he was collecting all the artists, but it was definitely impressive. I think I met him after the album came out, and I was at the listening party. One of the artists, Fear Nothing Band, actually good friends of mine, and my friend Tom Grin, who actually arranged all that, we basically met at that Toot show. And like I said, like same thing with Jay and Paul, we were just hanging out at that show, and it was more like vibing off each other. And it's like, all right, like, you're doing a listening party, let me come out and take some photos. And I came out, and we just clicked. So, and same thing with Paul. I interviewed Paul, and right after that interview, we just started talking. We became friends right away because the vibes were just perfect. He was a very humble dude, very cordial, and I feel like people with like minds, they definitely gravitate towards each other.
Well, you may not have cracked mainstream media, but I can see in the past that a lot of ink has been spent on you and featuring your work, such as Backyard Magazine, Rebel Ink, Revolver, and on the net is Rad Collector and New York Skateboarding. Do you have any favorite among these?
Honestly, I could pick and choose. Like I said, I think everything pretty much represents what I'm about and what my company's about. Like, for example, the New York skateboarding scene, I have a lot of friends who are professional skateboarders. So I can sit here and say, we're a skateboarding company, but at the same time, this is who we hang out with. Like, most of my best friends are pro skaters, just do events, and they're down for the cause. And just from growing up with them, part of that scene in the mid-'90s where it was very rebellious. Now I feel like times have changed. Skateboarding is extremely popular. Even hardcore punk music is like, you can see it on MTV now, where in the beginning, in the mid-'90s, at least for that kind of music, when I got into it, it was kind of underground. And I feel like just word of mouth kind of helps out the company. Like, all right, let's listen, this is good people right here, and he's down for the cause. And I feel like that's what keeps the ball rolling, just a good rep in that aspect. Like, you can always rely on coverage,
Well, what would you say stands you apart as a photographer? What do you think attracts photographers and videographers like you to the Occupy movement, which is pretty cutting edge in its own way now?
Well, like I said, you kind of got to meet me in person, and I hate talking about how I do it, but if I were to describe how I do it, I don't look like a normal photographer just pressing the button. A lot of my photos have light swirls, different types of images in them, and I kind of have to act like a ninja. I got to throw the camera up in there, do some crazy tricks, and the first impression is always weird looks, like what's this guy doing? And then I'll show the photo and they'll be impressed, this is crazy. And I feel like personality based, I guess when I'm out there I feel very confident, where like I said, growing up I wasn't really a confident kid, and It's just when you realize what you're good at something, you kind of use that in a positive way. So I'm taking that energy, and I think people see that I'm passionate about what I do, so they kind of want to hang out and just get to know me, and they see that I'm cool to talk to, so friendship naturally occurs, you know.
Well, it appears to me that you're giving some pretty good advice to people who want to go out there and give their best gifts, whether it be writing or photography or music, or just in the case of just plain marching, if that's what's called for and that's what people can do.
And I agree. I feel like that's probably, to answer your earlier question, that's probably why I'm gravitated towards this Occupy thing. And, you know, I can't sit here and say, you know, I'm 100%, like I'm there, but I can say that the people involved in this, I definitely see where they're coming from. And I'll respect that, and I'll document it. And you had people like Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. I grew up listening to that band when I was like 14 years old. I gave the tape to my social studies teacher, and he played it in class. So it's kind of like, you know, it has some meaning to me from when I was a youth, you know. And it's like I get to meet these people and kind of say, you know what, thank you for doing this and being yourself and showing your passion about what you believe in. And I respect that. It's like a mutual respect for people with, you know, like-minded individuals. Well,
it is a fact that if phenomenons like this, and skateboarding at its time was a phenomenon, and of course has grown to be mainstream. Same way you could say with headbanger music or punk rock. I would love to see the day when the concepts and everything that people in the Occupy movement believe in are considered mundane, and of course that's the way we feel.
Right. Exactly. It's just a matter of, you know what? It's a matter of getting the message out. You know, people. Certain parts of the Occupy movement are portrayed in a negative light, at least by certain newspapers that I see. And I feel like, at least with my art, I can at least represent, like, the positive things about it, what they're trying to do, you know, people that are trying to make a positive change, not necessarily hurt people through physical violence. Even Jay, like, he put a post up how on Fox News they had something about the Occupy this album, or Music for Occupy, and on Fox News they said, you know what, this is good, there's no violence going on, it's just pure, listen to this album and try to do positive things. So I think that's pretty good.
That is very good. As a photographer, is there a favorite moment that you have when you're filming a subject?
Is there a favorite moment, or was there a favorite moment in time? Because I definitely have a couple.
Yeah, let's hear the couple.
Well, I guess you can go back to like the Snoop Dogg tour. You know, I grew up taking photos of like just skateboarders and I guess just everyday life from where I came from, and then next thing you know, you're backstage with Snoop, and for me that's pretty big. But in the beginning, I couldn't just go up to him. He had like 10 bodyguards in front of his door, which was pretty interesting. He's high profile. So of course, even though I got the pass that says backstage, all that stuff, I still have to wait. So respectfully, I waited for like 20 minutes. And finally, the dude with the suit peeks his head to the door. And he says, you know what, you can enter now. And it's just like a movie. It's crazy. The door opens, and as soon as I walk in, it's like, you have Snoop Dogg there with Warren G. And he's just like smoking, and he's passing it, you know. And I walk in, little white dude, like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're all like, these gangster dudes are just like looking at me. I'm like, hey Snoop, let me take a photo. And so I take a photo and I do this ninja move. They all look at me like I'm crazy. I show them the photo, and next thing you know, they're just like, let's take a couple more. And they're doing like the West Side and all these like crazy postures. And I give them one of my stickers because I have like this raised fist sticker that's pretty popular. I give him one of them, and he just like starts cracking up. And he like, I just thought that was a great moment for me at least, because like I kind of bonded with this dude that I never thought I would meet, you know.
That's
and
great.
And I kind of just like walked out the door like, all right, Snoop, I'll see you later. And it was just like, it was awkward, but it was hilarious. It's like a story I will never forget.
Do you have another one that you enjoyed?
I mean, I have a lot of those moments where it's like, it's hard because you grow up when you're like 13, 14, 15, listening to these bands that you read their lyrics, especially punk rock and hardcore and hip hop. it's like you realize that the artist is struggling and how to rise up, so you relate, and that's why you like them. And then when you meet them in person, it's kind of like you kind of get butterflies and you get nervous, and then after, you take a couple photos, everything goes away. But I think the last pretty interesting situation, there's this band called Youth of Today, and if you look at Youth of Today's album, I think it came out like 1986, and the back of it, it's like a black and white photo of like the whole, like the band like lifting their fists up in the air, which is like another reason I probably picked race as propaganda. They have all their fists up and the crowd's like raising their fists, So I see the lead singer like backstage after he plays, right? It was at this thing called the Black and Blue Bowl, and it was at Webster Hall on May 19th, and they had all these classic like hardcore bands play. So me and my friend Chris, I told him, let's go get him, let's go interview him. So we went, and I go to the lead singer, Youth of Today, Ray Capo. I'm like, let me do an interview, and he was totally cool about it. I asked him about being positive and what this music does for you, and he pretty much replied on video that his music, each song is like an anthem. He tries to make anthems for people so they can kind of listen to and just get really excited and psyched on life, So I shook his hand, and I said, excellent interview. And then 10 minutes later, me and my friend Chris Kent, we go downstairs to the merch table where they have all the shirts for like every band, right? So I'm looking at Chris. We're going through records because they're selling records down there too from the 80s. So I get a Minor Threat record from like 85 or whatever. I get a Misfits record. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, wasn't that cool? We just interviewed Youth of Today, like the lead singer. Next thing I know, like I feel a tap on my shoulder, and it's the dude from Youth of Today, Ray Capo. And I'm like, what's up, dude? He goes, where the hell is the merch for Youth of Today? And he's talking to us like we're his friend,
Yeah.
I'm looking at my friend Chris. I'm like, what? And then he's like, this is crazy. He's like, I can't find my records. He's like, can you help me find the merch for Youth of Today? And he walks away, right? It was a total, like, Seinfeld moment. Like, this guy that you idolize, and he's talking to you like, it was very comical, Like, where's my merch? Where are my shirts at, So.
Well, speaking of merchandise, I went to your website and I saw that you actually have some of your own. What did you make up, some T-shirts?
Once in a while I'll see an image that sticks out, and I say, you know what, let's make a T-shirt out of it. Let's make a skateboard out of it. And I think that goes back to, growing up and just in high school wanting to do something cool. So I kind of give back, like I'll see an image, I'll make up like 100 or so T-shirts, and we'll have an event and we'll celebrate. Pretty random images that we came up with over the past 7 years.
Good. Well, it appears to me that our 15 minutes of fact is coming to completion here, but I'd like to know if there's any one particular thought you would like to leave people with before we complete our conversation.
I think what people need to realize, I think in life, at least to be happy, and it's something that I realize, is that never give up on your passion. And like you said, never become mundane or just give up. And, don't get me wrong. You should have, do your everyday, day-to-day job, but if you have a hobby or something that you love, don't let anyone bring you down or say you can't do it. Just do it. You have nothing to lose. And believe me, when I first started, a lot of people saying, your lens has spots on it, crappy photo, the lighting's off. But you know what? I focused on other things. I said, you know what? I'm just documenting life. Like, you can tell me things that are bad about my photo, technically, but it's not going to stop me. And I think people see that energy in me and the passion, and I feel like in return, I document groups of, cultures of people and try to get their passion on either video or photo.
Well, I think in this conversation we pretty much documented you as a person who's leading in your industry and as a good example to follow. So I want to thank you very much for spending some time with us today, Jeff.
All right. Thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, for our listeners, you can find Jeff at his website. That's raisedfistpropaganda.com, or by way of email at fro_37@yahoo.com, on Twitter at raisedfistpropa, P-R-O-P-A, And, of course, there's always Facebook, which has Raised Fist Propaganda. So make sure that you go there and visit with this great man, and maybe someday he'll take your picture too. This is Jerry Ashton, signing off for WGRNradio.com's 15 Minutes of Fact. Thank you so much.